This is a really, really important healing oil. So then I started to really look around and found that it was, first of all, very hard to find real Helichrysum on the market. I did find many years ago a wide variety of Helichrysum species available from different parts of the world, specifically coming out of Africa. And these are all excellent oils. We have these in what we call the Helichrysum blend. But the one that's the most famous, and partly because it's had the most research, but also because it has unique properties, is the Helichrysum Italicum. And that comes mostly from Eastern Europe and from Corsica. So I started looking for various sources, and I just discovered that the one from Corsica is the most famous and is reputed to have the highest levels of the healing compounds. And it is attributed to the soil of the island, as well as the general environmental conditions that it grows in there. There's something about Corsica where all of the aromatic plants are just more aromatic, and all the food is just more flavorful, okay? And all the colors are just brighter. I'll stop there, okay? I don't want too many people going there. We have had the Helichrysum Italicum coming from a number of places, and it's an excellent oil, okay? I am not implying here that it's an inferior oil by any means. If you can get the Helichrysum Italicum from Hungary, from Croatia, all of these places, it's an excellent oil. But the Corsican oil is really truly superior. And so we started doing some research and tried to contact these distillers, and Sarah was in charge of, emailing and calling, and what we found is that nobody wants to talk to us. It's like there's this little Corsican mafia of Helichrysum. And it's kind of like that, but it's also just that they're very preoccupied with their work, okay? And so what we realized is that we were actually going to have to go there to meet these people to be able to get it. And so we went, and we spent a month there, and we got there before the flowers started to bloom. It was unseasonably cold, rainy, and we stayed, and right towards the end of when we were leaving, they started to bloom. It started to get hot, and they started to bloom. And so this is the environment that they grow in. Now, the Helichrysum on Corsica is considered to be a national treasure. It's actually regulated by the government. Tourists are allowed to take out 1 handful. That's it. You can't just pack your bags with this stuff, okay? But the whole island smells like Helichrysum, this sweet fragrance, along with this mixture of these flowering herbaceous plants that grow everywhere. It's an ecosystem called the maquis, or the marquis, and it produces this honey, and the whole island just smells like this floral realm. And the Helichrysum is a major item that is protected there as a national resource. And so the distillers, there are 8 distillers on the island, and each of those distillers has to get a license that is renewed every year to harvest the Helichrysum, okay? And if they don't take care of the plants, then they won't get the license. So it's a very sustainable industry. What we found was that the Helichrysum has 2 types. There's the wild Helichrysum, and then there's the cultivated type. And so we learned that, this is like the lavender. There's the real thing that grows in the wild, and then there are these strains that are being cultivated. And we learned that the properties are somewhat different also, that the cultivated is being cultivated primarily for the cosmetics industry. And it's easier for the farmers, for the distillers, because it's all right there. The wild harvesting of the Helichrysum appears to be declining somewhat and getting harder and harder to find the true wild Helichrysum. We went and visited all of these distillers, and we weren't finding the wild Helichrysum in their collection. There was the cultivated type, but we were looking specifically for which is the best Helichrysum in the world. Well, we knew it was there on the island. But then we started discovering that parts of the island get more rain than others, and so therefore we learned that the best comes from the dry part, which is the south, and then we learned that the best comes from the higher altitudes in the mountains in the south. All right, so we narrowed it down to a specific region in the island, and we weren't finding anybody who was really producing much. It was like a little collector's item. Most of it was now being cultivated. And the reason that it was so hard to get it in the past was because it was all the wild stuff. And it's very difficult. You have to go up in the mountains, you have to hike on these trails, you have to cut the stuff by hand, and then you have to carry it down on the trails to the car, and then you have to transport it, and it has a very low yield. You have to fill these massive stills and get very small amount of oil, and that's why it was so difficult to find it, you see. But we went around and met all 7 distillers without finding the high altitude mountain variety growing on the south, dry, hot side. And then we went to the last distiller. And not only did they have the cultivated variety, but they also had the wild harvested from the low altitude, the wild harvested from mid-altitude, and the wild harvested from high altitude, okay? And so that's what we brought back. And that's what I have here for you, is the Helichrysum Italicum from Corsica, from the south side of the island, from the high mountains, hand harvested, all right? So what I like to say is that this is literally the best Helichrysum in the world, because those are all of the geographical factors that went into getting this. And so this is the one that we introduced 2 years ago when we came back from Corsica, and people really appreciated it. And it sold out very, very quickly, and we were not able to get any more. Because that first year, when I met with the distiller, I said, "How much are you producing this year?" And he gave me this long story about how they have to go up in the mountains on foot and harvest it by hand. And I knew what he was getting at. Okay, it's going to be expensive. And he said, "Well, we're only producing 2 liters this year." Okay. And I said, "Well, what will it take for you to produce 1 more for us?" And he gave me a price. And I said, "Fine." And so they did it. They went and they spent an extra week gathering the flowers for us to have 1 liter. And so we got that. And then we requested, all right, we would like to be a regular customer. And they said, fine, we can do more next year. But they couldn't do more because of the rain. Now, this is all they got. They got 1 liter, okay? And we have some here. And it's very, very interesting because even though there was very low production of the oil because of the rain, the oil is extraordinary. So check it out. Tell me what you think. Oops. Do you like it? Yeah, it's quite unusual, isn't it? Helichrysum, especially the high altitude wild Helichrysum, has some properties that go far beyond its physical healing capacity. So I am going to include that in our talk about the sacred scents. And I also like to include it in a group of 3 fragrances that I consider to be wish-fulfilling gems, okay? Plants that seem to have some kind of spiritual power that give us great blessings. And so this is one of those. Do you like it? It's quite nice, isn't it?